Okay, brilliant. I'll just get started then. Yeah, so I've come to talk to you this lunchtime about the Fashioning Our World project. Fashioning Our World was funded by the Esme Fairbairn Collections Fund, delivered by the Museums Association. And it was a 3-year project based at Salisbury Museum, starting in 2018 and running until 2021. So the aim of the project was to look at museum fashion collections, starting with one at Salisbury, working alongside young people, so particularly young people aged 11 to 25 years. And we were looking at the collection for items that told stories of sustainability, so things that had been repaired, remade, or loved and looked after through the generations. And on the slide there, you can see one of the first items which the young people picked out of the collection, which was originally a man's waistcoat from the 1700s. And it was repurposed in the 1800s into a woman's bodice front. And it's really interesting. You can see how they've really tried to keep as much of the beautiful embroidery as they could when they repurposed the garment. And also interesting because originally a man's garment and used for a woman's garment as well. So that's just one of the many items that we were looking at with the young people in the collection. So the young people that we worked with mainly groups of young people aged 11 to 18-year-olds, and they came from various schools around Salisbury, came to after school club, which we ran at the museum. So we ran that weekly, and they also took part in workshops at the weekends and in the holidays as well. We worked with students from the Arts University Bournemouth, particularly their MA in historic costume. And we also worked with groups of young people with caring responsibilities. And the sessions we put together for those young people were more fun and respite sessions using the theme of fashion and sustainability for those sessions. So as well as looking at the items from the fashion collection that told the stories of sustainability, part of the aims of the project was for the young people taking part to learn sewing skills inspired by the objects that they had seen in the collection. So, for example, repurposing and mending. And so the young people took part in workshops to learn these skills. And you can see in the slide there a young person who's doing some embroidery on a top that they no longer wear to kind of refresh it and make it a bit more exciting. So part of it was to inspire the young people to think differently about the clothes in their own wardrobes from what they'd learned from the stories of the items in the museum collection. Partnerships were really important to the project, and we had several partnerships that were kind of outside the museum world. So we partnered with Foxtrot Vintage, which are a local vintage clothes shop in Salisbury, as well as the Swish, who are a social enterprise whose aim is to get young people involved in sustainable fashion. So they were a great partner because their aims were very similar to the aims of the project. And we also partnershipped with Sustainable Fashion Week. So Sustainable Fashion Week offer an alternative to normal Fashion Week, whereby they organise a huge amount of community groups, things like fashion swaps and sustainable fashion shows and mending workshops, all sorts of things, and they bring those together as an alternative. So they were also a great partner, and they came and ran some sessions for the young people looking at sustainable fashion and how we can involve communities to make a difference. A really important aspect of the project was to share the ideas and the kind of model that we created as the project with other museums and heritage organisations. And we worked closely with Dorset Museum on this. And what Dorset Museum did was they took the sessions that we've been running at Salisbury Museum and they trialled a version of them at Dorset Museum. So looking at their collection and running a series of workshops inspired by the objects in their fashion collection that told stories of sustainability. And we wanted to work with Dorset Museum on that to see if the workshops would work in another museum context with the Museum of the Textile Collection, and they were very successful. So as well as looking at the items in the collection and looking at the stories of sustainability that they told and learning sewing skills, the other element of the project was that the young people would share these stories with the community and hopefully inspire other people to make more sustainable fashion choices in the future. And the young people that we worked with came up with their own ideas for the best ways to do this. And they decided to, well, one of the things they decided to do was to organise a sustainable fashion show. So we held that at Salisbury Arts Centre, and we worked alongside Wiltshire Creative in the organising of that. And it was really successful. The young people made all their own clothes for the fashion show. So they made some trashion items, which is clothes made from things that would otherwise have been thrown away. And hopefully you can see on the photograph on the slide there, the young person in the foreground is wearing a skirt, which is actually made in bin bags. And the young person in the background is wearing an outfit, which is partially made from a pair of old net curtains. So that really captured their imagination. And we also did other workshops, including natural dyeing and making of accessories as well. So the young people worked really hard. They made all their outfits for the fashion show. And we also worked with our partners on that as well. So Foxtrot Vintage, the vintage clothes shop, took part, and we coincided the dates with Sustainable Fashion Week as well. And quite a few of the young people were quite nervous before they took part in the fashion show. Many of them had joined the project because they were interested in perhaps in sustainability or museum fashion collections or those sort of reasons, not necessarily with a kind of drama and performance interest. But despite their nerves before the fashion show, they had an amazing time and were just buzzing at the end of it. So that was really successful. The other way that the young people decided that they'd like to share the stories from the fashion collection of sustainability was an exhibition. So we held the exhibition at the Salisbury Museum from the 10th of February to the 12th of May 2024. And you can see the exhibition poster on this slide. It just illustrates some of the young people's involvement in the project. So you can see the project logo on that slide, and that was designed by the young people. They also came up with the idea of the strap line for the project, which is unpicking the past to thread together the future. And the dress, which you can see on that slide, is a miniature dress, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute, which was created by a student from the Arts University, Bournemouth. Couldn't resist including a slide with Patrick Grant on it. So Patrick Grant officially opened the exhibition, which is very exciting for all of us involved. And this picture of him shows him dressing up in the replica pockets, which were made for the exhibition by a student from the Arts University, Bournemouth. So the whole exhibition was co-curated alongside young people. And what the young people aimed to do with the exhibition was to tell the stories of the clothes and accessories from the past that had been repurposed, repaired, and loved. And ask if those stories can inspire us to think differently about fashion in the future. So that was their aims for the exhibition. So the young people worked on every aspect of the exhibition, but just to talk about one aspect of that, which is the panel designs. So you can see on this slide, or what you can see on this slide is some ideas that the young people had come up with for one of the panels. So what they did is they worked with an artist and they came up with individual design ideas for each of the 8 panels in the exhibition. And they drew illustrations to go on those panels as well. And the group of young people that we worked with were really keen for the panels to be quite visual and the illustrations on the panels to kind of explain what the text was saying just with an illustration, because they felt that not everybody wants to read all the text and they wanted to have that kind of visual representation of it. So they created 8 boards like the one you can see on this slide, one for each panel in the exhibition, and they worked alongside an artist to create these boards and come up with the ideas. So they had the text for each of the panels at that point, so they were working from that text. And then when they'd created their design ideas, we had a graphic designer who came to the sessions, and the young people shared the ideas that they had for the panels with the graphic designer. And then he went away and came up with 3 possible designs based on their ideas. Of those 3 designs, they picked their favourite, and then they had some changes they wanted to make to just make sure that final design was exactly how they wanted it. So it was a little bit of back and forth between the young people and the designer. And I think that was a great experience for everybody. The group were a little bit nervous at first about sharing their ideas, but I think their confidence really grew with that. And they had some really, we had some great feedback from the designer who said to the young people, "Oh, I wish all my clients were like you," and expressed their ideas so clearly. So I think that was great for their confidence too. And so you can see they did the illustrations for the panels, and they also came up with elements that they wanted, design elements they wanted to run through all the panels. And for example, you can see on the panels here the thread design, which actually ran through all the panels with the buttons along that. And here you can see the finished panels in the exhibition. So apologies if that is a bit small, but you can see them here. 3 panels in the exhibition. That's 3 of the 8 panels. So that was the panels. So we also had a series of miniature mannequins in the exhibition. So the mannequins themselves were made by one of our team members who did an amazing job of making all of the mini mannequins using recycled materials and industrial offcuts. And then the students from the Arts University Bournemouth, who were the MA costume students, they designed and made the outfits to go on the mini mannequins. And each outfit was inspired by an object in the collection that told a story of sustainability, but also aimed to provoke a positive thought or action about fashion and sustainability in the person viewing them. So we had 20 of those on display in the exhibition, and online we had accompanying text which was written by the students explaining their kind of ideas and thoughts behind the mini mannequin outfit designs. We also had a few mini mannequins, which were the outfits were made by famous fashion designers or sustainability experts. So in the middle of this slide, you can see a miniature cape, which was made by Zandra Rhodes, and it's a miniature version of the cape that she made for Freddie Mercury, which she made using an offcut from her workshop. You can also see a mini mannequin made by a designer called Johnny Banger, and he'd made a full-size dress made entirely from whistles, and he made this miniature version from the leftover whistles that he had from that dress. And the third one is by Orsola de Castro, who has written a best-selling book about sustainable fashion called Loved Clothes Last. So it's really great to have them in the exhibition and have that support from these well-known people. We also had a tag wall in the exhibition, and this was another idea that the young people came up with. And the tag wall, you can see it in the background on that slide, represents the amount of garments. So each tag is the number of tags represents the amount of garments thrown away approximately every 20 seconds in the UK. So that's 315 pegs. And we had a series of garment tag shaped pieces of cardboard that people could write a pledge on and leave it in the exhibition. And we had a really great response to this. We were aiming to cover all of the pegs in the course of the exhibition, and we had many more than that. So it was it was great to see all people the inspiring pledges people were making after seeing the exhibition. So as well as co-curating all the different aspects of the exhibition, the team of young people, the 11 to 18-year-olds that we were working with at the After School Club, were really keen to contribute to produce something to go in the exhibition as well. And when we asked them what they would like to do for that, they decided they really wanted to work on a collaborative garment. So the photo on the slide shows the finished garment that they made, and what they did is they were inspired by some of the items which we had on display in the exhibition, including a beautiful velvet studded bodice, which the blue sort of triangle shape at the front of the dress represents. And they were also inspired by the dress made of rubbish in the film Cruella, because the dress was created entirely from scraps of fabric and things that would otherwise have been thrown away. So, for example, a dress that couldn't be worn anymore because it had an iron mark on it, and some scraps of fabric which were donated to the project were used. And they also created a lot of you can see the sort of decorations across the shoulders of the dress, and they are made from things like bottle tops, which have been repurposed into small brooches. And they also had made a series of paper flowers, which had the strap line from the project written over and over again on them. And the idea of the collaborative dress was for the young people to kind of pull together the ideas that were coming out of the project and to communicate with those visiting the museum their thoughts about sustainable fashion. And they were hoping that through communicating these thoughts, they might be able to inspire some people to think differently. And you can see on the bodice part of the dress, there's actually words. I'm sure you can't read them on the slide, but they wrote words on there as well. Things like "act now" to try and put across some more of their thoughts on fashion and sustainability. And you can see in the foreground the object caption for that dress, which they wrote as a team themselves. So we had some digital aspects to the Fashioning Our World project. So one of them was the project Instagram, which we kept updated through the project. And then the other aspect which we had was a project website, which we set up. And what we did on the project website is we had 12 key objects from the exhibition, with articles about each object, which were written by members of the project team. So some of them were written by the young people, and some of them were written by the volunteers taking part in the project. And the thinking behind that was to just offer an extra layer of information about the objects, and also just give all the different voices in the project an opportunity to put forward their thoughts on the objects. So that worked really well because we had a range of different ways of kind of talking about the objects. Some of the articles were quite, going into historical context, and others were talking about more about how the objects had inspired something that had been made, for example, one that was written by an arts university student. And then some of the other articles were written by the young people talking about what they found inspiring about the objects. So as well as the website and the Instagram, we also made 3 short films for the project. And one of those we had as part of the Fashioning Our World exhibition. So that really, that film captured some of the sustainable fashion show that we organised, and it also captured some of the workshops and the work that went into the collaborative dress. So if anybody would like to, see that film, it is still available on the Fashioning Our World website. And also the young people kind of put forward their thoughts about sustainable fashion on that film as well. So it was really nice to have that in the exhibition, and hopefully it gave visitors an insight into all of the work that had been done behind, or not all of the work, but just some of the work that had been done behind the scenes by the young people and how they'd been involved. So the just to kind of summarize really, the main aims of the Fashioning Our World project was to work with young people to tell the stories of sustainability from the past, from objects, things that had been, things like repaired, recycled, and loved and looked after. Also for the young people to gain sewing skills so they could work on their own wardrobes, inspired by those historical pieces. We wanted to inspire other people in the wider community to change their attitudes towards sustainable fashion, and that was done through the fashion show and the exhibition. And then the other main aim of the project was to share the idea with other organisations, and we obviously worked with Dorset Museum on that, and then during the project and afterwards too, we've been doing talks about it to kind of share the ideas with as many people as possible, and we also aim to make a difference as well. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation. And now I'm really happy to answer any questions that